The federal government has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's determination to tackle Nigeria's security challenges, saying he is more than ready to uproot the last vestiges of terrorists in the country. Addressing a World Press Conference in Abuja on Wednesday, Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris blames external forces on the United States' designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, stressing that there is no exclusive terror target on Christians or indeed any other groups in the country, even as he said Nigeria welcomes international support, including from the Donald Trump's United States, to crush terrorists in the country. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye tells us more.
Worried about the anxieties in the wake of threats by the United States President Donald Trump to launch military action in Nigeria in support of alleged genocide of Christians in the country, the Nigerian government on Wednesday moved strongly to dispel what it considers a misconception of the complex realities of events in the country's protracted security challenges. Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, dismissed the narrative that Christians are specifically being targeted.
The menace of terrorism in Nigeria does not exclusively target any religious or ethnic group. As in many parts of the world, extremism is mindless and it is blind to religion.
Relying on the report of a recent Global Terrorism Index, Idris said President Bola Tinubu is determined more than ever to confront the scourge of terrorism in Nigeria, pointing out that his recent change of service chiefs reflects Nigeria's commitment to uproot the last vestiges of terrorists in the country. According to Idris, Nigeria is winning the war as it reels out records of progress made in the last 2.5 years in different parts of the country.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is more than determined to confront and end these security challenges. Since May of 2023, when he took office, Nigeria's security agencies have neutralized more than 13,500 terrorists through sustained operations, and they have arrested over 17,000 suspects.
Striking among the statistics being reeled out here is the killing of more than 13,500 terrorists since May 2023 and the arrest of another 17,000 suspects, including two most wanted terrorist suspects, Mahmoud Usman and Abubakar Abba, and the perpetrators of the Awada attacks in Benue State, who government says are now facing trials. Even more compelling is the disclosure that the federal government has successfully intercepted 20 gun-running networks, thereby cutting off arms supplies to terrorists, with more than 124,000 insurgents surrendering to the superior powers of Nigeria's security forces. The Nigerian government, however, believes some insiders with external forces are behind the country's security challenges, even as it welcomed international support, including from the United States, to crush terrorism in the country.
In actual fact, there are some groups who are angry politically that they lost elections, and they started pushing this narrative in the US up until yesterday.
Admitting that government still needs to do more, the Nigerian government called on citizens, especially the media, to support their troops and stop providing any form of support to terrorists who it says are their common enemies. Omo Bazwai, Rise News.
Well, Nigeria's return to the international capital market defied political headwinds yesterday as its $2.35 billion Eurobond issuance attracted orders worth $13 billion, representing an oversubscription by 453% or $10.65 billion. This comes despite United States President Donald Trump's designation of the West African country as a country of particular concern over alleged widespread killing killings of Christians, rising religious intolerance, and his further threat of military action if the government fails to curb the violence. The strong investor appetite signals renewed global confidence in Nigeria's economic reforms trajectory and resilience amid rising geopolitical tension. In his remarks on the transaction, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu stated that, and I quote him, "We are delighted by the strong investor confidence demonstrated in our country and our reform agenda. This development reaffirms Nigeria's position as a recognized and credible participant in the global capital market," end of quote. Well, according to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, he said this successful market access demonstrates the international community's continued confidence in Nigeria's reform trajectory and our commitment to sustainable, inclusive growth. Moving on to the PDP, the crisis in the People's Democratic Party continues. The factional acting national chairman, Abdul Rahman Mohammed, says the party has appealed Monday's judgment of a federal high court stopping the party's national convention. This comes as the board of trustees of the party has set up a 6-man committee to reconcile the factions ahead of the proposed convention in Ibadan.
It's been one meeting after the other as the leadership of the factional acting national chairman, Abdul Rahman Mohammed, in collaboration with the national secretary of the party, Senator Samuel Anyaun, condemns Tuesday's judgment of an Oyo State High Court that the national convention should go ahead.
Our esteemed national legal advisor, Ajibade Kamaldeen, SAN, has provided a true legal opinion on the implication of the judgment in a strict adherence to due process and our commitment to fairness. We have filed an appeal before the Court of Appeal to seek further judicial clarification and interpretation in the overall interest of our party.
Abdul Rahman said that having received the certified true copy of the earlier judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which stopped the convention, it is headed to the appeal court.
The PDP hereby suspend and cancel the proposed Ibadan National Convention, pending the decision of the Court of Appeal.
Meanwhile, the National Secretary of the party, Sam Anyaun, called on INEC to dissociate itself from the Ibadan Convention and dismissed the possibility of a reconciliation.
I am a member of the Board of Trustees. If I was not invited in such a meeting, that means that meeting is one-sided. As we speak, we have a divided Board of Trustees. Most of those people you see today are not members of the Board of Trustees. Some of them were just newly recruited. The information we got that the Wadata will be attacked. Based on that, they deploy security. And if you remember, when some of you were there, on the 3rd, when I arrived at the office to do my normal job, I was almost attacked by hoodlums under the directives and instruction of Ilya Damagu, the suspended chairman.
Meanwhile, the Board of Trustees, BOT, of the PDP says it will not align with any faction as elders move to reconcile all aggrieved groups ahead of the Ibadan Convention. At a meeting of the trustees in Abuja, the national chairman, Umar Damagum, and the BOT chairman, Senator Adolphus Wabara, welcomed the Ibadan court ruling, which upheld the PDP's right to go ahead with its convention.
No ambition, no grievance, and no factional loyalty should override the collective interests of the PDP. As the conscience of the party, the BOT cannot and will not take sides.
I must confess that what Justice Akintola did in this era of judicial intimidation and moral compromise is an act of courage.
Ambassador Hassan Adamu was named chairman of the committee, with Mike Ohiadomhir as secretary. The committee is expected to bring together both the Wike Anyaun-led NWC and the Damagum-led NWC to a compromise. The committee is expected to submit a report by Tuesday, November the 11th. Mary Chinda, Arise News.
All right, so this morning, Dr. Mati is not here because tomorrow is the big day. And so we're looking forward to celebrating him at 60.
Yes.
He has a book launch tomorrow. But let's go straight into today's news stories being by. We have, of course, we still continue with Trump and Nigeria. This the threat of military intervention to arrest or to sack the terrorists in the communities where they're operating, and then moving on to the performance Eurobond, despite all this going on, and finally with the PDP still very much in the news. Will this convention hold? Your take on these stories?
Oh, will this convention hold? Goodness, I wish I had a crystal ball to answer that one. But the announcement of a reconciliation committee, which will make it the third reconciliation committee that we've seen being brought together since 2023. What's different about this one is the major question. And we have an interview on this later. And that's the question I want to ask, is that this is the third reconciliation committee, albeit the nomenclature may be different, but committees have been formed. But unfortunately, the party has been able to move forward. Now I'll focus my attention on issues pertaining to US-Nigeria relations and all the allegations stemming. And now we're seeing an official position, official response from the federal government through the press conference that was held yesterday. And I think I want to begin by commending their efforts to be transparent, to engage, and to begin to speak to data and to numbers. However, the challenge is that the trust deficit has become so deep. Trust has been eroded between state and people so deeply that do Nigerians believe these numbers? Do Nigerians feel confident that this is the legitimate situation? Because many people would say that, well, if the security situation had improved, you wouldn't have to tell it to us. We would be able to vocalize it and validate it through our lived experience. So there's a challenge that needs to be resolved there. And when I thought about it deeply, I realized that the issue here is the issue of a social contract. What is a social contract? I, as government, will provide you with safety, with welfare, with security, with a conducive environment for you to self-actualize. You, as people, will pay taxes, you will obey the laws of the land, and so forth. Nigeria has become a case of a broken social contract, which is that because the people feel that the government is not doing its part, that they feel that what is the point? What's the purpose of this? The government is not delivering on issues of insecurity. Yes, this is an issue that has been going on for so long. We know the antecedent around it. We know the issues around Libya and the burst of terrorists into the Sahel. Now there are reports as well that there are some coming from Sudan. However, having said that, Nigerians are still saying, well, besides this issue with Donald Trump bringing it to the front burner, the conversation has been focused around 2027 elections more than it has been on insecurity. And so that's why there's a lot of disgruntlement. And that's why, yes, as much as it's a positive step to see this communique, to see these press statements, it's unfortunate that it comes at a time of crisis that has been brought about by an international leader shining the spotlight on this issue. Now, when you think of social contracts, I always go back to my political philosophy. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote a book in 1762 called The Social Contract, and he broke it down. He broke down how the government always needs to do its part to ensure that its citizens are taken care of so that the government can have legitimate authority. Why do I bring up issues of legitimate authority? Because it is that legitimate authority that a government stands on to be able to call itself a sovereign nation. Without the legitimacy that is brought about by citizens doing their part and the government doing its part in what comes together as a social contract, then you have a legal sovereignty as a nation, but you don't have a moral and a political one, which is why you will have Nigerians saying, well, let the Americans come because we are not finding solutions locally. We are talking about sovereignty, but they're telling you, what is sovereignty doing for us? This is a broken social contract. Now, on another angle is sharing the data, countering information, countering misinformation, and so forth. as much as it is a step in the right direction, we also have to draw parallels with the situation between the United States and South Africa, where the South African government was adamant. They brought evidence, they brought data to counter allegations, false allegations from the United States about a white genocide. So I say the situations rhyme because they are very intricate details which are actually different. Because in this case, there is a true case of killings, persecution of Christians in some areas. However, the South African government went and they shared data and they shared their research. They even took some of Donald Trump's own white South African friends, people he plays golf with, people he has done business with, billionaires who've done business with him in New York and so forth. But guess what? The bill, which is called the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act of 2025, has already scaled its reading with the U.S. Foreign Affairs Committee. It's going to the House for a vote, after which it will go to the Senate. Then the president will assent to it. What I'm trying to say is that, unfortunately, the sharing of data, countering misinformation, may not work, as we saw in the example of South Africa. What also breaks my heart is that when South Africa was faced with these false allegations of white genocide, Africa kept quiet. Now, unfortunately, it's spreading to other African countries. Our fellow African brothers and sisters are also keeping quiet. Is it the fear of Donald Trump? I don't know, but I think we all should have stood with South Africa in their time. As I close, I think what is important for us is to begin to rebuild the social contract, deliver security to people, deliver welfare to people, deliver a conducive environment for self-actualization. And if a government is able to do that, trust me, it is Nigerians themselves who will be the first to say, Donald Trump, please keep your America, we'll keep our Nigeria. But until that contract is fulfilled, unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves. And just in summary on the Eurobond oversubscription, fantastic news, great to see investor confidence. However, we need FDI. And to do that, we need our industrial policy in place. They say it has been concluded, but we're waiting for our industrial policy to be presented and to be ratified.
Excellent. All right. Rufai, your take on this story.
So mind you, Eurobond is a loan. Let's not forget that. So for the fact that it's oversubscribed, it's a loan. It's a bond. You have to pay back at another date. That's 2.3 or over 10 billion oversubscribed, plus the 1.15 trillion we collected yesterday. Don't let us put a fancy word on it. Don't let us spin and say, oh, because, our bond level was degraded by 0.6% the other day because of the Trump announcement and all of that. Now it shows we're bullish on the bond market. It's still a loan. Underline. Okay. This morning, I was woken up with a message. Somebody sent me a message, and I'll see if I can read it on the air, if I get the chance to read it on the air, so that a lot of Nigerians see what I go through sometimes and why I scream and why I shout. Excellente. Rufai, they have kidnapped a vicar of one of the Anglican churches, Venerable Archie, and his wife, and a young girl. They're asking for a ransom of 600 million naira. Evil people. And there's a poster. Diocese of Kaduna, Venerable Edwin Archie and his wife, Mrs. Sarah Archie, were kidnapped in the early hours, 28th of October. In fact, this is a prayer alert they sent. You see, I want Nigeria to work. I'm a patriot to the core. I don't believe in all the narrative and propaganda by the Americans, by the Chinese, by all these people. Yesterday, I talked about the greatness of this country when we put out 15 billion to fight, to liberate our ECOWAS countries. Nigeria fought 6 different rebel groups across Sierra Leone and Liberia. We were ECOMOG. The strength of our military held through, and we got results. The question is, why can't we fight the group that is happening? And I'll tell you some things today. Number one, what this long war has done, it has built a military-industrial complex in Nigeria. And as far as the military-industrial complex is not solved, things will arise to ensure the war continues. The government, if they have the political will, must first stop the military-industrial complex. And it cuts across. There is military-industrial complex everywhere. Secondly, the government must stop the killings. I get messages every single day. But you see what we have done in this argument. We have put propaganda forward. Go and look at it. In all of the government engagement, they're not talking about the people being killed. They're talking about their own narrative. So they talk about people that were neutralized, that were released. I dare the government to release the data of people that have been killed. They will not. And other people that are spinning the narrative are now focused on pitting religions against each other. Please, my dear Christian and Muslim brothers, it's not a fight between Christians and Muslims. We are united and we are one. Do not let them use this thing to distract us again, because I see that's what they want to do. My dear South and North, it's not a fight between the South and North, because we are all being killed anyway. Because that's what I've seen in the recent days. They've spun the propaganda around. Oh, 15,000 neutralized, 15,000 rescued. What about the people killed? All we are saying is stop the killing. Trump lies per second billion. If Trump does like this, lie, 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 anything, lie. Yes, I admit he didn't bring out his facts before he said Christian genocide. But does that stop us from solving the problem of killing in our own country that's been raging for a while? So let's stop the talk here and there and try to point accusing fingers at one another. Can we collectively call on the government to have a political will to solve the problem and bring the perpetrators to book? Is that too much to ask for? Because you see, in all the conversations I've had, it's just been conspiracy theories, pitting Christians against Muslims. It's now a context of which religion are they killing more? Muslims, Christians, Muslims, Christians. That's not the goddamn problem. The problem is Nigerians are dying. Let's not divide ourselves. Our Christian brothers are being killed. Our Muslim brothers are being killed. Every Nigerian is being killed. Oshokono worshippers are being killed. How can we fix this problem? That's the priority. And the government should please rise to action. I'll tell a quick story. Runnymede in 1215, the barons met the king and they signed something called the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights. It is based on that most constitutions are written. The king will subject our sovereignty to you, but you must do something in return for us. That was pretty much articulated in the likes of John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and everything. Mm-hmm. All we are saying is, for us, government, Section 14, subsection 2B is where we stand. That is the mandate we stand. Section 14, subsection 2B, the security of the people is your responsibility, and that's why we're paying taxes. That's why the military is being funded. That's why we're giving you our sovereignty. That's why we respect and we salute the coat of arms and we sing the national anthem. Let us do something about these killings. Nigeria, we hail thee. Our own dear native land, though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we will stand. Government, do something.
All right, that's been the call on this table, and for many quarters since this news broke, around the best response to Donald Trump's claim and Nigeria being designated as a country of particular concern, being that we fix the problem rather than trying to make it look better. Of course, the job of the government in trying to manage diplomatically is to ensure that they're able to put Nigeria in the best of light, saying that the claims are false, there's no genocide against Christians in Nigeria. They say the president himself is moderate, is married to a woman who is a pastor, and while he was governor in Lagos State, he regularly had engagements with people of different faiths, religious leaders in the state. And in fairness to the president, that is actually the reality on ground. But does this mean that we do not have security challenges or terrorists or people who are burning churches or killing Christians in the North Central, especially in Plateau State, in the rural communities in Plateau State? I reached out to some of the leaders, religious leaders in the state to get a sense of what is really happening there. And the truth is that for a very long time, they have been calling out and speaking out about what is going on in that region. Perhaps if we had paid attention to them, we wouldn't be running helter-skelter now, trying to, put up images, release facts and figures, and deny the claims by the US government, if only we had faced the issues head-on at the time. This then brings up some of the conversations that have happened even before now. Number one is the fact that recall that a former governor of a state in the northwest had said that the government's policy was to pay bandits and to give them incentives in order for them to stop killing people in the country, and that was not a good model or directive or policy to follow. Even though the Office of the National Security Advisor came out to debunk that story, but it then brings an opportunity for us to discuss what is the strategy of this government to address the incessant terrorism acts of banditry, kidnapping in the country. Unfortunately, so far it hasn't worked. In fact, what has happened is that some of these bandits have become even more emboldened, such that they are able to carry out their nefarious activities and record them. They're able to engage with community leaders, hold their own kinds of press conference with nothing being done. Instead, it almost seems as if there's appeasement, we grant amnesties, we are handling with kids' gloves. It's high time the government showed seriousness to this by actually putting their own boots on the ground in their own nation and actually getting the problem solved. In the area of diplomatic dialogue, I've heard on good authority that presidents or heads of state have waded in, maybe not from the African continent, and Vimba, you're absolutely spot on. And I think more than just before us not working together in unity is the fact that nobody wants America's attention on them right now. They just want to be in the good books of America, and that even opens up a different conversation around Pan-Africanism, around Africa getting itself together so that we can begin to have a voice when it comes to global discourse, that we can begin to have a voice as a continent and not defer to the West all the time. Every time a country has a problem with the Western nation, it becomes a bit isolated, everyone looks away. But then we talk tough when it's amongst ourselves. So it's high time we actually started to, speak on behalf of one another. I don't think South Africa has said anything yet, since this has happened. I'm talking about the powerhouses on the African continent. I don't think Egypt has said anything, at the moment.
ECOWAS has said something.
ECOWAS has said something. Okay, well, Nigeria is part of ECOWAS, so it's still a region bloc. But I mean, it's still something. But in terms of standing together, may there be a time when the African continent can speak with one voice against the Western superpower. Until we get to that point, we'll continue to go cap in hand. But on good authority, I have it that there are conversations going on behind the scenes. The president of Nigeria, the president of the United States of America, and an independent nation that's Western and has huge influence and good diplomatic relationships with the United States of America. And that is why you'd see in the coming days, the tone would temper down and we'll begin to see the Nigerian government come out to speak about efforts they are making in ensuring that they are able to maintain the security of lives and property. So that's a good move in that regard. But I think beyond diplomatic conversations, or in addition to diplomatic conversations, would be the Nigerian life. What happens to the Nigerian people? May we use this as a good opportunity to finally fix the challenges that both Christians and Muslims are facing, and in particular the Christians who have come out to speak up. The real truth is that whether I talk about Bokos, Mangu local government area, they talk about this, Bakin Ladi, we report issues of Christians, churches being burnt, and it is high time that something is done about it. No one deserves to die for their faith. According to the Constitution as guaranteed, it is important that we're able to uphold religious freedom, and that it should not just be a talk shop or the fact that I'm married to a pastor. That should be the conversation around that. It should be what is the reality of Christians and Muslims living in Nigeria, and ensuring that they are able to exercise and follow their faith without any fear of an attack. I think that is the most important thing for us as Nigerians. It's not enough to just keep to present a good front on the international scene, but actually to fix the problem. That is the best response, and I continue to maintain that. Now, going on to the PDP and the crisis in the PDP. Today we're going to have someone, we've been having conversations around this all through the week. But I think the big question, as was posed yesterday, I believe, to the chairman of the PDP in Abia State, is that who are the people working against the PDP to ensure that at all costs the convention will not hold? This is another reconciliation committee, and from the looks of it already, it doesn't look like some of the people, members of the party who have been working against the party, are ready for any kind of reconciliation. What they want is a destabilization of the party and that the convention does not hold. We must call a spade a spade. And so it is high time for the PDP as a party to, using the word that's in the news at the moment, put their own boots on the ground, even though it doesn't fit in, but also be very firm and take on the disciplinary action meted on these actors who are working on behalf of the opposition to destabilize the party. That is the truth. And the reason why they are doubling down on their efforts to ensure that the convention doesn't hold is that once the convention happens, things will begin to change. And those who have worked against the PDP for so long will then see them get the boots out of the party. Oftentimes we'll ask the question around, why is the principal actor in this matter has not been called to order? Why has he not been expelled from the party? And the conversation is that he sits on the National Executive Committee, the highest making body in the party, and it is not as straightforward as that to kick him out of the party. But with due process following the convention, finally, the PDP might be able to get a semblance of sense or semblance of working at least towards to have a party and not disintegrate entirely. And so you begin to understand that when it comes to those who are working effortlessly to ensure that the PDP does not stand, who are they working for? What is the motive for it? It must be clamped down, because if we're going to have a thriving democracy, the opposition must have a strong voice. We cannot have a nation where there's no dissenting voice to the power of the day and all the opposition parties are in crisis in one way or the other, where seeds have been sown to ensure that the parties are stabilized. And that's why we as Nigerians must speak up at this point. The PDP to get its acts together and to ensure that they're able to rise up as a voice of opposition in this democracy alongside the other parties, whether it be the Labour Party, ADC, SDP. We need a vibrant democracy, and for that to happen, we must have voices of opposition that are strong, so that we do not descend into a one-party state. And those are some of the things before us this morning. But like we mentioned, hopefully we are able to deepen the conversation with our guests later on today's show.